Story 1. Thread. What screams, "I am insecure," that most people do not notice? Reddit. What screams, "I am insecure"? Story 2. When someone constantly feels the need to remind you and others that "I am a good person," it indicates insecurity. It suggests they might be hiding difficult truths about themselves. Story 3. Egotism disguised as extroversion. You can identify it by their desire to talk about themselves but never ask or listen to what others have to say. On the surface, it can appear as confidence. Story 4. Frequently, insecurity is viewed as something contemptible, which is honestly sad. For me, insecurity manifests as competitiveness. I need to have something that I am really good at. Otherwise, my self-worth is in the gutter. This does not mean I am unpleasant to be around in those circumstances, but it does require that I compete and do well. I understand that the point of this thread is to make fun of obnoxious people with huge cars, but I believe the subject deserves another perspective, as it can honestly feel crippling at times. Story 5. Being overly helpful to the point of exhausting themselves. Kindness as a coping mechanism that stems from a sense of persistent unworthiness. Story 6. Making fun of others. Deriving joy from upsetting other people. Boasting about how much money you earn. Story 7. Guess culture. When someone hints at their needs instead of asking, they are afraid of rejection. They convince themselves they are rejected when they do not get what they ask for. Story 8. Managers treat staff like objects. This usually results from a person trying to convince themselves that they are who they say they are. Story 9. First things first, there is nothing wrong with being insecure. Most people experience insecurity in different situations. Second, large vehicles. Story 10. I hate this conversation. There are many narrow perspectives. Being insecure does not mean you are a sociopath or someone who is hiding something. Story 11. I am a single woman, and I happen to walk past or near a couple, minding my own business. The woman tries to give me a mean look or makes a move to stroke the man or grab his arm in front of me. I see it as insecurity. Not every woman is out to steal your man. Story 12. One example from the workplace is when people subtly influence and change narratives, reporting, or data in order for themselves to look good. Not the team, the business, or the company. They do not report accurately so that the right action can be taken. It is all about how they superficially appear to superiors and coworkers and is usually a sign that they know they are out of their depth. It is a slow issue that goes under the radar for a while, but it always comes out eventually. Story 13. Constantly and relentlessly judging others over the most trivial things to feel superior to them. I know too many people like this. Story 14. People who lean forward into themselves when sitting or standing, or cross their arms in front of their stomach to hide their body. As someone who has done this for years, it is involuntary at this point, and I have to snap myself out of it. Story 15. Calling it, pick me, does not begin to cover it. The constant need to talk to ensure your ideas are heard, even to the point where you have to keep repeating them just to be sure. Story 16. Constantly having to dress up and look nice. It's beyond a sense of pride in your appearance, which is natural and we should all have. It's more like, I have to have a full face of makeup to go check the mail because I'm terrified someone else will judge me for being a human being. I dealt with this a lot when I was living in Russia and women would dress up to go grocery shopping. That was more of a cultural norm, a remnant of Soviet times and gender expectations. But there was still a hint of, if I were to just go here in regular clothing, I would be laughed out of the place. Story 17. Never being able to be wrong, even in the slightest. I have seen most people respond as if they are completely accustomed to it when someone tries to play it off as if they were actually right all along. Story 18. Cocaine use in social environments. I knew a couple of guys back in the day, broken as hell, drinking, couldn't talk to women if they were not on cocaine. Everywhere, it's a party drug used to last longer and appear cool. All I see are insecure people who need substances to have a good time. Story 19. Gossiping about a person reveals that individuals who frequently talk about others are often deeply insecure about their own lives. Story 20. going through someone's phone, telling a person who they can and cannot talk to, asking who they are on the phone with, asking why they are at a certain location when you share their location, always needing to be in a relationship, always relationship hopping. Story 21. Wearing a Rolex or expensive watch when you cannot quite afford it is common. The same applies to cars and other costly items. Story 22. Luxurious items. Large logos on clothes. Why do you need a Porsche if the speed limit is 100 kilometers per hour everywhere? A large house where half of the rooms are not used. Story 23. A very loud and powerful truck. I laugh every time I see a 5'5" little man jump out of the driver's side. Story 24. These threads keep appearing. I see the same question on my homepage at least once a week. Why are you asking, what screams insecure? Are you worried that your actions might seem insecure? Story 25. Speaking for others. Saying something like, nobody cares, when they mean they do not care. Or, all men want something when they are trying to express what they desire. Or, everybody lies when they are admitting they lie. Just speak for yourself. Do not try to put the authority of all humanity behind your opinion. It is also a sign of poor character. Story 26. Being excessively happy-go-lucky. In my experience, people who appear overly happy all the time are typically really insecure and anxious about interpersonal relationships. Some people grow up learning that being neutral or showing any negative emotion is perceived as rude, meaning everything not extremely positive is considered negative. It can also be a fake it till you make it mentality. I thought if I acted happier, I would be happier. There is some truth to this, but it does not cancel out depression at all. If you are happy, people will not think that you are upset with them, and things go more smoothly. Story 27. To actually answer your question, I think people who constantly adjust their clothes in public, pull on their shirts, fix their cuffs, or dust their pants, being so fixated on their appearance in public, just scream insecurity. Story 28. I do not like immigrants, members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and others community, members of religion X, people with different skin colors, people who speak different languages. The people who say that kind of nonsense are usually the most insecure of all. Story 29. Too much makeup. Maybe? I used to wear too much makeup to cover my insecurities and appear prettier because I was overweight and dealing with acne before. Story 30. Late model Lamborghinis and Ferraris. Classic cars can be a sign of special interest and wealth. However, newer supercars are often an obvious attempt to appear wealthier and cooler than the purchaser actually is. Story 31. When a person tries to organize a Christmas party for a group who are not friends, not interested in being friends, and not obligated to spend time together. Story 32. As a people pleaser, the answer is people pleasing. Maybe she is born with it, maybe it is pathological. Story 33. There is a lifted truck I see around sometimes with a decal that says, panty dropper, on the back glass. Story 34. When you talk about getting a new piercing or hairstyle and the person you are telling says it will not look good because of some reason, they are really projecting because their partner would not like it if they did that. Story 35. Talking or walking too fast, being too kind, asking permission for everything, feeling sorry for everything. I used to have a manager like this. He was a mess. Felt like he was asking for permission to exist, always in a hurry. Poor guy. He was the worst leader I have ever had. Story 36. Always asking if someone needs help, such as, can I help you with this? Repeatedly asking if the person is sure they do not need help can make them feel uneasy when they say no. It is worse when they do not ask and decide to help in their own way. They often become fussy when criticized for doing so. Story 37. We have a very macho friend who is displaying insecurity because he feels the need to one-up you with anything physical you do. You started running? He can run a mile in 6 minutes. You started lifting? He can deadlift 250 pounds. Clearly shows insecurity. Story 38. Depends on what kind of insecurity you are talking about. I would say constantly posting, especially in multiple successions. I have seen my ex's moods literally hinge on whether or not they receive overlapping like notifications on their posts. Their social circles and followers might view it as confidence and embracing themselves, but they do not necessarily notice the drive they feel to have their looks, personality, or moral character validated. I think it is a human need to be reminded that you are still part of the community or pack, and that you are still beautiful to those who love you. However, I believe social media has warped and hidden the insecure side of projecting a curated self-image to the world. Story 39. Narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. For example, half the country has voted for a man they perceive as strong and bold because he is rude, cruel, and lacking in empathy or compassion. However, anyone who understands that people with narcissistic personality disorder are driven by deep insecurity sees a different individual beneath the surface. This person is driven by deep insecurity, low self-worth, and a desperate need for approval from authority figures, mimicking the personality of his father. Story 40. Inability to name insecurities and own them. I have noticed that people who are insecure rarely admit it. I do not think everyone should openly say at work or elsewhere, "I hate how bad I am at X." But if you cannot admit insecurities to anyone or think you do not have any, you have more than anyone. Story 41. Having their identity tied to an external thing such as a sports team, pet breed, political party, or product. Yes, you can be a fan of something, but the line is thin, and consumerism makes it easy for people to fall victim to this. It is hard to have any meaningful conversation with these types of people. Story 42. Needing to know everything about what your partner is doing all the time may be obvious to the people in this thread, but for some reason it is not to many people. Story 43. Casually bringing up what you paid for something is not necessary. I do not care in which direction. I do not need to know if you only paid 20 or if it set you back 2,000. Story 44. A large, modified, knobby tire, no muffler, spotlessly clean, never been off-road, supersized pickup truck with reindeer antler side mirrors, and a 2-foot extension tow package revving the engine as it rumbles down the street. Yes, I understand. You have a small penis. Sorry, brother. Story 45. Replying negatively to many comments about various topics. I acknowledge my insecurity and am currently dealing with a difficult person on another site who refuses to stop. Story 46. Believe me, people come up to me, strangers, on the street and tell me how great I am. Tears in their eyes. Everybody says. Insulting nicknames. Story 47. When there is a small crack in your porcelain toilet, it can quickly break and cause injuries if untreated. Story 48. One-uppers. You know the type. You talk about an accomplishment, and they jump in and say not only did they accomplish it as well, but faster and better than you did. Story 49. All of the above answers are not things that people do not notice. Here is a real one. When a person proclaims that they deeply want to make stuff, that is, says they would love to write a book, make songs, be in a band, have a YouTube channel, or whatever, but has no interest in any of those things from other people. That is, someone really believes they want to write a book but never reads. Someone really thinks they want to make music but does not listen to any music on their own. Says they want to start a channel but does not follow any that inspire them. Real creation comes from an appreciation for the medium and inspiration from other great works in it. It is going, "This is so great. It is so special to me. I would love to make my own version." When someone steadfastly believes they want to make things in some medium but does not have any interest in that medium, it has nothing to do with art and everything to do with wanting to feel special. Some people want to write and other people want to be authors, and if you do not see the difference right away, I am sorry. It is insecurity of the highest form, where you are so desperate for an identity that you are daydreaming of working in some medium that you have no interest or appreciation for. You do not care about music. You have not spent hours of your life learning the ins and outs of it like someone who does would. You want an identity of a famous musician. It speaks so much to how insecure someone is, how detached they are from how reality works. It is the last grappling of the insecure clinging to some identity to put on like a hat. Story 50. Making insults like, "is not even that pretty," is a major red flag to me. I remember a random viral video of a pretty girl lip-syncing, and watching so many people downplay how beautiful she was gave me secondhand embarrassment. Story 51. People who are insecure tend to notice their own insecurity often. For example, they may touch the gap in their teeth with their finger or their bald spot frequently. Story 52. I know most people would say expensive cars, watches, or clothing brands, but I feel like this thread is supposed to be about things that often fly under the radar. If I had to point out the one thing that most screams, I'm insecure, it would be constantly seeking agreement or validation in conversations, especially through overly agreeable behavior, nervous laughter, or always mirroring others' opinions, even when they contradict themselves. Unlike flashy status symbols, this is harder to notice unless you are paying close attention. It often shows up as never giving a strong opinion unless someone else says it first, nodding or smiling even when they disagree or do not understand, asking, right? Or, do you get what I mean? Too often, and apologizing before they have done anything wrong. It is an insecurity around self-worth or being accepted. While it can seem like politeness or shyness, it actually reflects a deeper fear of rejection or inadequacy. Most people overlook it because it feels subtle or socially adaptive. Story 53. According to the Association for Research on Adulthood Development, not allowing your significant other to have intimate relationships with other people may indicate insecurity. Story 54. Taking longer to reply to a message when the person you are talking to mentions someone else. Speaking from experience, I am not proud. Story 55. Wanting another person to submit, calling yourself leader or some other nonsensical title, just screams insecurity. Needing to boss someone around to make yourself feel important is not confident. Story 56. For me, it is squeezing every ounce of knowledge or awareness into any anecdote to avoid someone pointing out something I was already aware of and making me feel like they thought I did not know. That, and pointing out obvious details in other people's stories. Ask me how I know. Story 57. Success. Not all of it, of course, but sometimes people try so hard to escape from their insecurities that they become successful at something. Does success help to overcome insecurities? Well, you will be the judge of that. Story 58. When a person says to you, "Then what did I do?" Tell them what I did. It is embarrassing to be in that room. Story 59. Showing resistance or anger when someone politely points out something they might have missed or misunderstood. Story 60. I think a prime example of this is always needing to talk about how good you are at something or how much you have accomplished. Let your achievements speak for themselves. Story 61. An ex-girlfriend of a mutual ex-boyfriend is messaging you, being nosy in your business after you denied your ex-boyfriend's request for friendship. So she, on behalf of the mutual ex-boyfriend, plays hero mediator because he is sad that I don't want to be friends with him, after he never took accountability for cheating on me and her at the same time, and I'm reeling from the hard breakup. Then she brands you as a villain for not accepting his token friendship, and she can't possibly understand why I am being so mean to him. But she says they're okay because they talked, they're best friends again, and thanks you. Then a year later, she direct messages you, unprovoked, to say they were involved when that happened and that he was so embarrassed to bring her around his family and friends, so he dumped her. She continues to speak negatively about the mutual ex in hopes that you will join in, saying, "Men are terrible, am I right? No, Desiree. You're just an unstable and insecure woman I hope to never meet again." How embarrassing. Anyway, that Story 62. You would be better off studying anxious and avoidant attachment theory than asking people on Reddit. Listen to the Therapist's Uncensored podcast. Story 63. I do more of a yell than a scream. Maybe that is why everyone just carries on looking at their phones. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.